Now, I have made this Facebook Live. This is about creating connection through online groups. We have a tendency to think in our culture that if we're online, then we're not going to feel the connection and the warmth and the being seen and sense of belonging. So, what I want to talk about today, and we're not going to be on more than an hour, is just a little bit of ways to mitigate that. Of course, we're going to do some prayer. We're going to, a short meditation, just but really to just a few ideas, creative ideas to support you in, um, you know, getting over some, hiccups and some bumps when it comes to doing online. We have a tendency to think that if we're not in person and hugging and holding hands, that it's not warm and fuzzy. And of course, it's very different to be online. But that being said, we certainly have the capacity uh, to create empathy, to demonstrate compassion, to care for each other, and have a sense of connection online. But first, let's do some prayer. So if you're comfortable, I'm going to invite you to uh, close your outer eyes and just take a deep breath and just settle in. And this prayer comes from Reverend Paulette Pipe, who is a colleague of mine. I don't know that everybody online is necessarily affiliated with Unity, but this prayer is from Reverend Paulette Pipe. So we breathe in and we just settle into our space. And in all things, we pause, we allow the chair to hold our body, and we breathe, letting the shoulders drop, knowing that just as the chair supports our body, so too do we support each other, whether we can physically see each other or hear each other, or I'm sitting next to you in a class, in a worship service, in a workshop, at a drumming, at a chanting, whatever community event I may not be able to attend. Know that just as the chair supports your body, we are here to support each other, to see in our mind's eye, within our own imagination, the connection of life, the connection of love. And so these are Reverend Paulette Pipe's words. Wherever we are at this moment, the fascinating and beautiful universal spirit of God, by whatever name you use, connects us heart to heart, focusing on disconcerting external appearances may cause some of us to become rattled by fear or worry. And so for this brief moment, for right now in this time, we move our attention inward. We move our attention into this time and space together where all overwhelm has dropped, where our doubts are quieted. We know that peace awaits our arrival at the center of our being, gently encompassing each one of us. And it is from this space of peace that we experience ourselves as pure love. Pure love that transcends any limiting imperfect thoughts, pure love that transcends any empty spaces, that transcends any worry. Not only it fills the empty spaces, but it transcends any empty spaces. And any hard places within ourselves, outside of ourselves, we know that pure love, by whatever name we use, softens those hard places. And so in deep gratitude, with energized life and love and faith, we release these words, knowing that they are so. And so it is. And so we go forth and we be it. Amen. Okay. So if you, I know that the chat box is being used, so I'm going to encourage you to keep using that. I'm actually doing this Facebook Live from on my computer, which generally is oftentimes it's easier to do it from your iPhone or your iPad. But of course, I wanted to test it just because. So before we get started, um, before I start launching into sort of the specifics of what I want to talk about, I first want to just invite you to type in any questions that you have about anything, um, anything at all. I'm not a medical expert, but I am a disaster chaplain, and I work. Quite a bit of my ministry is disaster work and disaster preparedness, emergency preparedness. Some people have an aversion to using the word disaster. I don't. That's just the common term we use. It's not, by saying disaster, we're not affirming making it bigger. It's just what it is called. But I spend a lot of time doing spiritual care during times of like this, of great upheaval. So before we get going, if you have any questions, type them into the little chat box, whether it's a question for yourself or your community. And if I don't know, I will tell you where to go. Oh, how do you start a Facebook? Sorry, I didn't scroll down enough. How can I slow my mind from all the worry? So Kitty, I'm going to come back to yours in a moment. So Kevin, in terms of slowing your mind down from all the activities, so for starters, most faith traditions, from atheist to Zoroastrian, most everyone knows that being mindful, pausing, taking the breath, and it takes a practice. See, our mind, from a science perspective, the brain we've trained it to be the way it is, right? So we've trained it to think really fast. We've trained it to think it knows how to multitask. We've trained it to, always be going really fast, to when you see something, you see a dog and you be afraid, or you hear the news on and it must be all media hype. You see a person of color and you go to the other side of the street. You hear virus, you hear, whatever. You hear someone yelling and you get afraid. But we've sort of trained ourselves to just respond. And so the first step, Kevin, is just being still. And I know that sounds anticlimactic. There's not a magic pill, but just the way we've trained ourselves to have monkey mind and the hamster wheel going, we can train ourselves to slow it down. It just requires that we practice, that you be still. And if you're not used to that, I'm not even suggesting trying to do it for 20 minutes. Do it for a minute. Like set a timer for a minute. There are wonderful apps. There's a great app that's called Calm, CALM. And there are a myriad of tools on there to support anyone in slowing themselves down physically, emotionally, mentally. There's stories. You can listen to storytelling. You can listen to bedtime stories you listen to that will just help you drift into sleep. There are meditations. There's little soft pieces of music. So I should probably get like an affiliate fee or something from Calm, but Calm, CALM, is a fabulous app for as a place to start. And it's a practice, and you have to keep practicing, So, and since we know each other, Kevin, I'm sure we can continue the conversation offline. So Robin asks, can I use a hotspot to do Facebook Live? And if so, any idea how much gig of data I need? So yes, you can use Facebook Live functions generally better with Wi-Fi. That being said, the caveat is what's your speed of your Wi-Fi connection? So if it's not very speed, and the thing that you're looking for with speed of Wi-Fi is upload speed. So upload meaning here I have my camera, my computer, my whatever I'm using, tablet to film the speed, how much of a speed you have going from the gadget up to the internet. That's upload speed. Most of us, most people in the world are really focused on their download speed, like how quickly can I get what's on the internet onto my computer or onto my screen, and whether it's files or video or whatever. So, so it's the upload speed if you in terms of Wi-Fi. Using your phone as a hotspot, I don't know if you're using the hotspot in terms of cellular data or as a Wi-Fi connection. So if you're, my guess is cellular data because you're asking about how many gigabytes. Doing live stream eats up a lot of data. And I'm not sure, no Wi-Fi at church. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I have used it. And I've only I have used my phone, cellular data, done Facebook Live at places that don't have Wi-Fi or very weak Wi-Fi signal, and I've had no problem using the cellular data if I have enough bars. In terms of how much data, gigabytes of data that you would need a few. If you're going to do 60 minutes of a Sunday service. If you were only going to do like a half an hour, that's a talk and meditation, then you wouldn't need quite as much. I can't give you a specific number for data because it kind of depends on your connection and the quality of your video. The higher quality, the more data bytes, the more bytes of data you're going to use. But I will tell you that I have used cellular data to run Facebook Wi-Fi, Facebook Live, and I've not had any problem working it. So I'm not sure if that helps or not. So Kitty asks, how do you start a Facebook Live session? Well, the way that you start a Facebook Live session is you're on Facebook, and you can do Facebook Live from your computer. Yesterday in a Zoom meeting I had online, I said it wasn't on the computer to do Facebook Live. Technically it is, it's just a little harder. So I encourage to use your phone or a tablet to do the Facebook Live. That being said, what you would do is, let me see if I can do this for you. So when you pull up Facebook, when I pull up Facebook, you can see, see the little button that says live? If I click that, I have to do this backwards. So if I click that, then it starts a Facebook Live session. See, you're getting the cameras looking at my new apartment that hasn't been unpacked yet. So you get the joy of looking at. Now, I would obviously turn my camera horizontally so that the camera is videoing, doing a horizontal capture. But that's all it is just hitting that, Kitty, is when you pull up Facebook on your phone, doing that live button. Whoops, I have to do this backwards. Right there, it says a live button. So and then you just kind of go from there. There is a place to type in a description, but if you want to keep it sweet and short and simple because you're new to it, just hit that live button and make sure you just have the camera horizontally and it's facing whatever it is you want to stream out there, and you hit the blue button. That's the thing I didn't show you, sorry. Everything's backwards, I'm sorry. But when I hit the Facebook Live button, or I hit the live and I go live, there is, wow, this is really weird. See down here, it says tap to add a description. And then I would hit the blue button that says start live video. And then it would start. So that's really just the basics of that. So thank you, Gordon. Yep, that's the next place I'm going into, is creating a feeling of being there for those that are watching from home. So, but before I go there is, and anyone that's on here, Kitty or anyone, if you want to connect offline to do a little step-by-step walkthrough, regarding the mechanics of something, I'm more than happy to do that. But yeah, so the thing that I want to talk about is how do we create how do we create connected communities, what I would call connected community. And first and foremost, I would say, is that really what we're working at is mitigating stress from all the change. the reality is that we are that there's an enormous amount of change up, that we are in the midst of a something that most never see in their lifetimes, a pandemic, and so it requires us. We're really forced to change our social norms. So the first part of that, in terms of someone having an experience of being there and being connected, is us supporting those that are coming online, that's what they're going to have to. My non-pastoral voice would say, you need to put on your big girl panties and you need to change your norms. You don't have to abandon them, but need to expand them, right? And we need to be shift and change how we define what a social interaction is, how we define, oh, the internet is cold and unfriendly. Is it? I don't know. I think if you wander through Facebook or Instagram, you'll see people offering a lot of care and support when someone dies, when they're sick in the hospital, they've lost their job. There's a lot of caring that does go on. So the first thing is anyone that comes online that's part of. So for me, if I'm doing a church service or a spiritual community service online or classes, I want to start with acknowledging that this may be new for you, that we have some bumps as we're going along, but the speed bumps and changing our social norms is going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. The measures that we take now will actually make a huge difference as we move into the future. It will literally change our social makeup for the good. I honestly believe it will make us more intentional, more empathic, more mindful of how we connect with each other, because that's what we have to do online, is be mindful. So the first thing you want to do when you're doing something online is you want to always always remember that your church, your spiritual community, whatever group you're with, that online it's the community around the content. It's not just content shared online. Let me say that again. So when you're moving a class, a group, something that's been more intimate in person, and intimacy is not limited to just 20 people or 5 people. There is intimacy in a group of 1,000. With those next to you. But when you move a church, a spiritual group, regardless of the size, something that has a sense of intimacy and connection, when you move it from in-person to online, you have to remember that it's the community around the content. You're not just taking content from your in-person experience and streaming it online. So let me pause for a moment and see, does anyone not following that? Okay. So that's the first thing. I know I'm going to get to specifics, Gordon, and others, but it really has to start with the mindset. The second thing you always remember is think, and this is along the same lines, think mission, not task. Think mission, not task. So everything that you do when it's online, and however we're trying to create community and be connected and demonstrate empathy and compassion, and those individuals that might be more isolated than others, to ensure that they're not so isolated, we want to first and foremost think mission, not the task, which means that we get to let ourselves off the hook around stop trying to be perfect. And it reminds us that we are not, it's not the content going online, it's community going online. And so think mission, not task. Okay. So in that energy of think mission, not task, I want to demonstrate for you the model for you, what if you're a leader, or even if you're not a leader, but how to be present, how to be mindful online, how to demonstrate to someone your intention and your presence. And the way that you do that is just by looking people straight in the eye, bringing your whole face in and imagine. So I'm imagining, so I see this list of people's names here. I see Therese and David and Kitty and Gordon and John and Ariana. Oh, hi, Ariana. Hi, Jackie. And Kevin. So as I'm looking into the camera, I am imagining your faces. So I can see you. And I pause. And I take a deep breath. And I see you in my mind. And I imagine that you're right here in front of me. And that, right now, is the practice of presence. It's the practice of being mindful. And you just do that for a minute or so. And if you have a chat box, if you can see the names, call them out. I mean, if you had 1,000 people, you probably won't get to them all. But there's a handful of people here: Suzanne and Dinah, Jan, Kitty, Edith. Edith is ill, so she's staying away from people, right? Gordon, Lucky. Who else did I see? Oh, I saw Susan, yes, from Dubai. So I can see you, and I smile when I speak your name. They're not sitting next to me. I can't touch them. I can't do my usual thing, right? Of how I might connect. But that's the first way that you can practice being connected, being there. So someone knows, right? One of the very first and simplest ways to do that is be present. So in doing that, so let me pause for a moment, because there's a couple of things I just want to say. Is that if you're doing Facebook Live like this, I can't hear you or see you, but I get little chats, right? I can see names and people say things in the chat box. And I'm going to come back to the chat box in a moment as a mechanism for keeping people engaged and keeping a connection going and knowing where people are at and keeping them involved and making sure that that we're those that might be more isolated, we are pulling them in so they're not feeling as isolated. But I'm going to come back to the chat box in a moment. So I know I'm back. So hopefully we haven't lost everybody. I don't know what happened. So I just put in a little text box. So I was talking about think mission, not task. So along those lines, I just put in the chat box. Stuff happens with church, just like in real live in-person church. So I was saying think mission, not task, and about not having things be perfect. And so I just also posted a few things there to keep in mind. Gordon had asked, I don't know if Gordon is back. I can't necessarily see who's there. So hopefully people are back. But about not having it be perfect, that it's not that you're taking this in-person experience and just plopping it online, but you're creating something different. So here's some tips here. So be human, put yourself in other people's shoes, which means slow down, which means how are they experiencing this? Do I know? If I might be quite tech savvy, which means I have to slow down a little bit more. I want to organize my service intuitively, meaning intuitively in the context of what's working for where we're at, which means maybe I don't do things we normally would do on a Sunday morning service. So we just want to organize it. You want to be intuitive about it, really listen to your own wisdom, not necessarily do something because that's the way you've always done it. You want some visual appeal. And by that, I mean, like simpler, Like if you look behind me, there's just this blanket sort of hanging on my china cabinet. That it's nice and simple. Visual appeal. You tend to, if you're going to do Facebook, you don't necessarily want huge, lots of books and tchotchkes and pictures and things behind you. And we do the best we can. So adding visual appeal, you want to explain what the expectations, that, what people can expect from this. And you want to explain that it's not solely up to you if you're the leader, that it really does take a village. It really does take a whole group. You want to make it just pleasant and inviting. And you want to, if you're used to more formal things, you're probably going to want to learn to step away from that a little bit and really let go of, there's no such thing as perfect. Some of our most powerful connections with people come out of just serendipity and come out of it just happens in the moment. So that's what those, there's some bullet items there. They don't have bullets, but just some lists of things. I don't know who's online with us, so I'm not sure. The video dropped and then I started it again. So hopefully some of them have come back. There was Gordon and Kevin and Ariana and Jackie. So hopefully they'll be back. So what specifically can we do? So I'm kind of going general in terms of how we think about being online to what specifically can we do, action steps once we are online. So some of those, so I'm going to be putting some of those here in the chat box for you, wherever they are. So one thing you can do is whether you're using whatever mechanism you're using to be online, whether it's Facebook Live or say Zoom, you can start it a little bit early and allow people to show up early, just like they would normally. Just like people normally do for church. They come so they can gab and talk to each other and get coffee and, maybe a donut, or maybe there's a class before the Sunday service, but there's things that people show up early because they want to connect, because they want to chat. And so you can do the same thing when you're online. So for instance, this started at 3:00, but I could have started it at, 10 till or quarter till and had, people and just started it. I didn't have to be here, but I could have started. Allow people to show up early, tell them to get their coffee and to go sit and be with each other. If you're going to have church, not in person, but online, then you would probably be sending out communications that say, we're not doing church and live, but we are going to do it online, and you give the link, but put in there, give them some questions to chat about. If you know what your talk is, if you know what the topic of class or the workshop or, whatever the conversation or focus or was going to be, give them in your communications that you send out around that you're not meeting in person, we're going to meet online, give them some talking points and invite them to show up early, with their cup of coffee from their own kitchen, sitting down at their computer, and to talk amongst themselves. And so that they get a little bit of comfort, and they get a little bit of ease in being online. So that's one thing to do, is actually just like regular, any kind of community event, people show up early and people bring food. So show up early and bring some food. So don't be afraid. People oftentimes don't want to eat because they're on camera and they're online. It's okay. Of course, I wouldn't be chowing down on a sloppy Joe, but if you're having a cup of coffee, and you're and you may be eating a donut or something, it's okay. It humanizes the experience, and it reminds us that we are in community. So here's a couple ways I mentioned at the beginning, of the other video before it dropped, about ways to in this chat box. So you guys have been chatting in the chat box and, comments, or when you come online or you say hello. But here's other ways to use the chat box. Use the chat box over there for emojis, right? That make those little symbols of smiley faces, or, hand waving, or sticking out your tongue, right? That's going to be archived forever online now, right? Don't try to be perfect, but use the emojis to connect to each other. Ask someone, how are you feeling today? When you're chatting, or in the chat box, ask someone how they're feeling, and get used to using those little emojis, or like the little hearts. You can use the chat box to put answers to questions, right? I might ask, so what's the predominant, let's do it right now. What is your predominant feeling that you're experiencing today? So type that in the comment box. What's the predominant feeling that you're experiencing today? I don't know what that's thumbs up, good emoji. I'm going to assume that a thumbs up means I'm feeling good. I'm feeling kind of grounded. Kathy says connected. Dinah says joy. Something, little boxes sometimes get in the way. Joy and warmth. Feeling hopeful for continued community. Delighted to have some downtime. Good for you. Feeling calm. Hi, Luz. Yeah, Edith is feeling stars in her eyeballs. So now we just pause. I'm not saying anything. The only thing I'm saying is repeating what you wrote. So if we all are reading it together and I'm giving voice to it, it just helps connection. People have a sense of just being seen and being heard. And, and I can read it and go, oh, someone else is feeling nervous. Oh, someone else is grateful too. Oh, someone else, Edith, feels loved. Me too. Right? So that's one way, right? So I had asked a question and asked you to type an answer into the chat box. In a moment, we're going to use it for prayers. What about a statement of affirmation? What kind of, just, as you're listening and being with each other, what's a statement of affirmation that you might want to, provide in the chat box? It's another way to keep people think mission, not task, right? So I know I am endowed with the power to be compassionate, to be kind in every day, in every way, online and in person. That's my statement of truth today. So that's another way to use it. You can tell jokes. The chat box sometimes has a feeling of being a directional, like one way directed, but it actually can be two. So you can, whatever you put in there, like I can read it out loud. I can ask a question and you can respond. You can ask a question and I can respond. So just, begin to start thinking. Yes, mindful breathing, absolutely. So just being mindful in what's going on in there. 1 second, Suzanne, I'll come back to your question. So, and then the last little bullet point that I put up there was, as the host, to speak confidently and periodically type the word breathe, right? If it's not, the world is safe and friendly. And at moments I'm in places where it's not. It doesn't mean that I can't be safe and I can't be friendly and that I can't, express my gratitude that I have. I am centered in peace and peace is centered in me. Ooh, let's all say that one together. So you're going to say it out loud wherever you're sitting. This is another way to create community. And we all can't hear each other, but just like at the beginning, I, leaned in and listed names. It's the same idea. Say it out loud. I am centered in peace and peace is centered in me. Know that there's lots of other people listening and watching. I am centered in peace and peace is centered in me. And you can do that with lots and lots and lots of different, in lots of ways. Other affirmations of truth, other statements, right? Maybe you have some intention cards, right? You can always hold up an intention card. This is an angel card, but there's power. There's study, there's surrender and release, right? So I could hold up a card and just have people focus on the card. Of course, the reflection's annoying, but surrender and release. So what does that mean for us? So those are just a couple ways that you can keep people centered and involved. You may have daily word cards. There is a never-ending supply of ways to create community. And you can ask, I don't know if, Therese, if your question is serious or joking, but I kind of chuckled. How many rolls of toilet paper does it take to do online church? I don't know. How many rolls of toilet paper does it take to prop up your camera? So Suzanne, where are we? Okay, Suzanne says our live streaming is done from a sound booth, and we, as speakers, can't see the chat box while we are speaking. Can you speak to that situation? Absolutely, I can. I did this on World Day of Prayer once. So Unity, if you're not in Unity, every year, the second Thursday in September is Unity World Day of Prayer. And so Unity centers all over the world are for 24 hours, just focused on prayer. So one year I wanted to involve the online. They were live streaming the closing ceremonies, I was the keynote speaker for the closing, and it was being live streaming, and I wanted to be able to connect with those online. So what I did, and this was so much fun, is I had someone sitting in the sound booth. So for you, your sound booth, who can see the chat box. And I had my phone on stage, and she would text me when a statement came in from someone in the chat box, or a question or a prayer request. When that came in, they would copy it into a text, and they sent the text, and I was on stage, and I had my phone. So this is one of those things where some people are like, oh, you have your phone and it's on and we're in church. No, yes. This is one of those things I said at the beginning about how we have to change our social norms. They have to change. That's one of the easiest ways, and it's the most fun ways to do it, and it's very easy. For me, it was really easy to do that. And I had the person, it wasn't that they necessarily sent every single thing that got in the chat box, but if there was a question, if there was a prayer request, if there was something specific to what was going on, especially because my Sunday talks are very it's not me standing. We're doing this together. So it worked really well. And I would encourage anybody to do that. If you do live streaming and you're not next to it, like in this case, I can see the chat box, then ask someone that is near it to text you. And you have your phone wherever you are, and you can see the text, and you can go, oh, so there's Tim in Texas, and Tim says, ask this question, blah, 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 blah. And then I would answer it. And it just went on. And I thanked Tim, and I just acknowledged the online community. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so a couple other things. Where are we here? Okay, so in terms of creating connection online, when you're going to do a meditation, you can pull in candles. You can change the what people are looking at. So, for instance, I have a little setup ready to go that is candles. I can move myself out of the picture for meditation. I can stay in it and just have candles near me that I can light. I mean, it's not the most professional. So this is one of those, like when the video dropped at the beginning. So this is one of those times where it's just you're going with what is. We're not going for professional production. I know there are people that would really love that, and if they can do that, great. But I don't. So here I am where I'm at, and I want some candle while we do a meditation. So now someone can actually, if they want, they can be with the candle and just looking at the candle and paying attention to that. Um, so, um, so let's actually just take a moment. I'll come back. I know there's another question in there. Let's take a moment. If you're comfortable, you want to close your outer eyes, or you can just pay attention to the candles and just notice how they're glowing, and focus on the candles, and let the candle remind you that that you are the light. Let the candles remind you that we carry the light, that we are the light, that we are the compassion we want to see, that we are the kindness that we want to see, that we are that which we want to experience. So that was just a little experience of a little bit of meditative experience. So there's the candles, there's the music. You want to make sure that the music that you play, you have permission, you have the copyright for it. I'm going to blow these out now. And we'll go back to me. So, it requires us to think outside of our box, to be okay with not perfect, not obviously, you see me coming and going. It's not a professional job. I just wanted to quickly be able to offer some things to people to get the creative juices going, to really remind anyone who's leading groups online that to really be able to drop the idea of perfection, to drop the idea that it has to be like it is on Sunday. And the thing about that that's most important is that it's not about what it's like on Sunday morning, and people will have grief and sadness about that. And our job, anybody's, well, not even, I would say our job, leaders, but again, we're all doing this together. So anything that I do to create connection, anybody else online can do the same thing. So, so people have grief that I'm not coming together. We're not standing singing the peace song. We're not having a meet and greet. I want to sit and have coffee with my best friend, or, someone that I only see once a week, or I might be the person that's the one time a week that I am around people. All of these things we just have to pay attention to and be very mindful of. And anybody online does not have to be the minister, the spiritual leader, the board member, whomever, anyone. That's part of what this major shift has to happen, is that the spiritual care becomes everybody's responsibility. Absolutely everybody's. So, yeah, Lizzo did a meditation on her Instagram in less than 24 hours ago, and 2 million people have watched it. It also helps if you're Lizzo. But yeah, it doesn't take much. I last night I posted a 30-second video. My cat was sleeping and purring loudly, so I took a little video of it. It was like 30 seconds long, and I put it out on Facebook just as a reminder for us all to breathe and be focused on a cat purring. And it's gotten a whole hundreds of views. So that just tells me something. So Jen says, you're obviously doing this from the computer. How is it different than using the phone, the Facebook app on the phone? Honestly, Jan, I prefer doing it on the phone. I find it easier. But what you do is you have your phone and you just, I showed you where you click the live button, but you would want it, you need to have the phone propped up somewhere. So whether you get a tripod, one thing I said yesterday to people is you could get a selfie stick. And if you put the selfie stick, many chairs or pews or places that we are, there's a pocket on the back of the chair that normally would have, giving envelopes. You can put the selfie stick in that. So maybe the first or second row, a chair, put the selfie stick with the phone, right? And the phone is pointed at whatever you're filming and you just go live. In terms of navigating comments on the phone, I tend to not try to do both, but I can. If you're feeling particularly technically savvy and and you want to try that out, that's fine. But I actually find the Facebook app easier. The whole thing about it, though, is just finding a place to prop it up. And if that means on some books, in your purse, a selfie stick, a tripod, just so it is where it is. But as far as the mechanics, where you click the go live or the live video button, whether you're on the computer or on the phone, when you click that live, you then have a place to type in a description, and there's a blue button that says go live. So it's not really too different. I particularly prefer the phone, probably because I'm used to it and been doing it a lot more there. But I hope that answers your question, Jan. I think some of it is a little bit of a personal preference. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the time that I was going to use for us, and I've sort of barely scratched the surface. I wanted to just give a few things to do to slowly, or to kind of get the creative juices going for when you're doing services, a class, a Sunday service, whatever, to just hopefully get some creative juices going. There's, I always have prayer beads hanging around. They're very tactile. Get everybody to, you could have everybody create a short strand of prayer beads from wherever they are. Invite people to create altars wherever they're sitting, create altars together. So that they have things that are special and sacred in front of them, besides their coffee and donut, right in front of them. So, me too, Tracy. So, as far as there's two ways to give to me. One is website, which I just put in the chat box. The other is if you have my phone number, which I'm also putting in the chat box. You can actually, if you want to write a check, if you're someone who likes checks, you can write a check, take a picture of it with your phone, and text it to that phone. Those are kind of the easiest ways. So the last thing that I wanted to do is actually take any prayer requests. Does anyone have a prayer request? If you want, you could type it in the box. No? Okay. All right. I know there's a lot of things floating around, and I've not covered absolutely. You want a prayer for wholeness? We can do that. So I know there's a lot floating around, and there is, I've barely touched the surface, and I'll be back tomorrow on Facebook Live at some time, and different topics for different days. As a disaster chaplain, there's certainly the harder information of preparing a community, and this is, this was to be a little bit more light, to be creative online. So we have some prayer requests coming in, that our Sunday service is working together for the highest good. So we have prayer for wholeness, that our Sunday service is working together for our highest good, for healing, for surrender, acceptance, peace, healing prayer. Okay, so let's do two things. One, let's take a moment. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have us be still and quiet for a minute, and then invite you to write a prayer into the chat box, and then I'll speak a prayer for our closing. Okay, so if you're comfortable, close your outer eyes. Take a deep breath. And let's remember from earlier, I think Jackie said, I am centered in peace, and peace is the center of me. I am centered in peace, and peace is centered in me. And we affirm there's one presence and one power, one joy, one life, one love. As we open our hearts, we open our minds, knowing that for each of these intentions, for wholeness, for knowing that the Sunday service tomorrow is absolutely unfolding and providing the highest good for all, that healing is emerging for each person, holding an intention for gratitude, for surrender, for peace. So now I'll be quiet for a moment and ask you to type your own affirmation, your own response to the prayers that were requested into the chat box. Okay, so if you wanted to type a prayer in there. Thank you, Jan. All are unfolded in the love and the light of spirit. Ooh. The ever-present, all-knowing mind is now expressing its perfect fulfilling of every request, spoken or unspoken, in beautiful, magnificent ways, and so it is. I am present to the presence of pure spirit flowing in and through us now. Nothing can disturb the peace within our souls. You guys are powerful prayers. Okay. Well, hopefully this time has provided something creative to support you in being online. Most importantly, think mission, not task. That it's not about getting it right or perfect, or that this is about community. It's being together. And how do we be together when I can't physically hold you? And if I'm really attached to it being we hold each other, we hug each other, we hold hands, then I need to stretch myself, right? And find other ways of connecting. Therese says, wholeness enfolds us and surrounds us in this now moment. Yes, it does. Okay. Any questions? I'm sure there's probably oodles. I don't know that I can answer them, but anyone need anything that's before we close up shop? Okay. Then I will, I'll be back tomorrow. I don't know what time. I'm just randomly doing these each day because I think there's a need for, there's about 8 billion things on a list of topics to address and discuss and support faith-based organizations, and that's what I do. So So I appreciate your coming. I appreciate your time. And we affirm that everyone is healed, whole, and healthy and has the support they need in every way and every day. It's nice to see you. Bye.